The offer, when it came, felt like a coronation. It was presented not as a job, but as a reward, a prize for 15 years of unwavering loyalty. I was sitting in the sterile, glass-walled conference room on the 40th floor of the Innovate Solutions Tower in Chicago. The city skyline, sprawling beneath me like a circuit board. Across the polished walnut conference table sat Markham, the senior VP of Global Strategy. He was a man who oozed a predatory sort of charm, with a perfect suit, a perfect smile, and eyes that never seemed to blink. "Ethan," he began, leaning forward with a conspiratorial air. "You've been a rock for this company. 15 years. You've delivered on every project, hit every target. The board sees it. I see it. We feel it's time to reward that kind of loyalty. My name is Ethan Hayes. I'm 42 years old, and for my entire adult life, I had been a model corporate soldier for Innovate Solutions, a massive globe-spanning tech firm. I'd worked my way up from a junior analyst to a senior project manager, and I was good at my job. I managed complex software integrations for our biggest clients, a job that required a meticulous attention to detail and an ability to work punishing hours. It had allowed me to provide a great life for my wife, Sarah, and our 16-year-old daughter, Emily. We had a beautiful home in the suburbs, a tight-knit circle of friends, a life we had carefully built. "We're restructuring our European division," Markham continued, his voice smooth as silk. "And we need someone there we can trust implicitly, someone with our company's DNA. We're creating a new position, Director of European Operations, and we want you to be the one to lead it, based out of our Munich office." The words hung in the air, shimmering with possibility. Munich. A directorship. It was a quantum leap, the kind of promotion I thought was still years away. He painted a picture of a life plucked from a travel magazine, a generous expatriate package, a beautiful company-funded apartment in a historic German city, the chance for my daughter to become bilingual, for my wife and I to spend our weekends exploring the Alps or driving to Italy. "This isn't just a job, Ethan," he concluded, his eyes locking onto mine. "It's a thank you. It's the company giving back to one of its own." That night, Sarah and I stayed up late, a bottle of wine between us, our minds racing. It was a massive decision. Our entire world was here, our parents, our friends, the home we'd lived in for over a decade. Emily was in her junior year of high school. Uprooting her now would be a monumental disruption. We talked for hours, weighing the fear of the unknown against the promise of this incredible adventure. "They trust you, Ethan," Sarah said finally, her eyes shining with pride. 15 years of your life, you've given them. They wouldn't offer this if they weren't going to take care of us. We have to do it. We put our trust in the company. We put our trust in Markham's promises. We packed up our lives, put our furniture in storage, and said tearful goodbyes to our family. We took a leap of faith, convinced that my 15 years of loyalty had bought us a golden ticket. We were so wrong. Our first few weeks in Munich were a dizzying, exhilarating blur. The city was a stunning tapestry of old-world architecture and modern efficiency. We moved into a sleek, furnished apartment in a beautiful neighborhood, courtesy of the company. Emily, after a week of teenage brooding, started to admit that our new life was actually pretty cool. We were intoxicated by the adventure of it all. The first crack in the perfect facade appeared during my first week at the Munich office. A stern woman from German HR, Frau Kessler, presented me with a thick document entirely in German. "This is your local employment contract," she said in clipped, precise English. "You must sign this before we can finalize your residency and work permits." I hesitated. "I already have a contract with Innovate Solutions in the US," I explained. This move was a transfer, a promotion. "Why do I need a new contract?" "It is a formality of German law," she stated, her tone leaving no room for argument. "To be a resident employee of our German subsidiary, you must be on a German contract." I called Markham, feeling a flicker of unease. He just laughed it off. Relax, Ethan. It's just European bureaucracy. They love their paperwork over there. It's a standard procedure, doesn't change a thing about your compensation package. Just sign it, so we can get your work permit processed. And you can hit the ground running. Hit the ground running. That was the key phrase. The German immigration office was a labyrinth of paperwork and appointments scheduled weeks out. My official work permit, I was told, could take up to 3 months to be issued. What am I supposed to do until then? I asked Markham on a video call. You work, he said simply. I need you leading that team now, Ethan. We're behind on the Q4 rollout. We can't afford to have you sitting on your hands for 3 months, waiting for a rubber stamp. Just be discreet. You're a director. Nobody is going to question you. So I did as I was told. I dove into the work. I led meetings. I directed my new team of project managers. I made strategic decisions, authored reports, and put in 12-hour days. All while my official legal status in Germany was that of a tourist. I was, in the eyes of the German government, working completely illegally. And my company, the one that had promised to take care of me, was not only aware of it, they were demanding it. I trusted them. That was my second mistake. The end came exactly 6 weeks after our arrival. It was a Friday. I was in my office, putting the final touches on a strategy presentation for Markham, feeling for the first time like I was finally getting a handle on the new role. An email popped up in my inbox. The subject line was chillingly generic, important announcement regarding European operations. I opened it. It was a cold, sterile block of corporate speak, written by a lawyer who had surgically removed all traces of humanity. It spoke of strategic realignments, synergies, and streamlining. The final paragraph was the kill shot. Innovate Solutions was dissolving its entire European division. All positions were being eliminated, effective immediately. My position, my team, everyone. A cold wave of shock washed over me. This had to be a mistake. I tried to log into my corporate accounts. Access denied. I tried to call my team. My company phone was dead. I had been digitally executed. I scrambled to call Markham on my personal cell. He answered, his voice stripped of its usual warmth. It was the voice of a man, reading from a script. Markham, what the hell is going on? I demanded, my voice shaking, with a mixture of anger and panic. It's a tough day, Ethan, he said, his tone flat. It was a difficult decision, but the numbers just weren't there. The board decided to pull the plug. The numbers? You sent me here 6 weeks ago. You sold me on a 5-year plan. Circumstances change, he said calmly. Okay, I said, trying to steady myself. Okay. So what's the exit plan? When does the company fly us back? And what about my final month's salary and severance? There was a short, cold pause on the other end of the line. I think you're misunderstanding the situation, Ethan, Markham said, his voice now turning to ice. The expatriate package and severance were tied to your U.S. contract. As you know, your employment was transferred and governed by the local German contract you signed. As that contract has been terminated due to a workforce reduction, the company has no further financial or logistical obligations to you. The phone felt slick in my hand. The trap, so elegantly designed, was sprung. They had lured me to a foreign country, stripped me of my protections by having me sign a new contract, worked me illegally, and were now cutting me loose, leaving me and my family stranded 7,000 kilometers from home with no job, no income, and no way back. My 15 years of loyalty hadn't bought me a golden ticket. It had bought me a one-way ticket to hell. The days that followed were the darkest of my life. The fear was a physical presence in our small apartment, a suffocating weight. Sarah would spend hours just staring out the window, her face pale with worry. Emily was angry, her resentment a palpable force. I told you we shouldn't have come, she'd say, her words twisting the knife in my gut. I was a failure. I had led my family into a disaster. For a week, I was paralyzed by despair. Then, The despair began to curdle into a white-hot, diamond-hard rage. I kept replaying Markham's words in my head. Your employment was governed by the German contract. They thought that contract was their shield. They thought they had outsmarted me. A slow, dangerous idea began to form in my mind. They wanted to play by German rules? Fine. I was about to become an expert on German rules. I spent 2 days locked in my room, fueled by coffee and fury, researching German labor law. The more I read, the more my anger was replaced by a cold, thrilling sense of purpose. I found what I was looking for. The laws here weren't just rules. They were ironclad protections for the employee. And I realized the company hadn't just betrayed me. They had made a series of catastrophic, arrogant mistakes. My next step was to find a weapon. I searched online and found one of the largest, most powerful law firms in Munich. I made an appointment, specifically requesting an English-speaking labor law specialist. The next day, I sat across from a woman named Frau Anja Schmidt. She was in her 50s, with sharp, intelligent eyes and an air of intimidating competence. She listened to my entire story without interruption, her expression unreadable. I laid out the facts. The transfer, the new contract they forced me to sign. The 6 weeks they had me working illegally, without a permit, and their refusal to pay. When I finished, she was silent for a long moment. A slow, thin smile spread across her face. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a hunter who had just spotted her prey. Mr. Hayes, she said, her voice a low, confident purr. Your former company is exceptionally arrogant. And very, very stupid. They believe their American corporate power will protect them here. They are about to receive a rather abrupt and expensive education in German law. The illegal employment is the key. It is the leverage that will break them. Leave this with me. I walked out of that law firm, feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks, hope. It was a dangerous, predatory kind of hope. The game was on. The legal process was a slow, grinding war of attrition. Innovate Solutions, represented by a high-priced German law firm of their own, tried every trick in the book to drag things out, hoping to bleed me dry. But Frau Schmidt was a master tactician. She countered their every move, her filings precise and aggressive. Finally, after months of procedural battles, a date was set for a final hearing before a labor court judge. The day before the hearing, their lawyer called the court, claiming a sudden, unavoidable scheduling conflict, and requested a postponement of several months. It was a blatant delay tactic. Frau Schmidt's response was immediate and devastating. She informed the judge's clerk that her firm, Schmidt and Partner, employed over 250 attorneys. The idea that her colleague could not look at his calendar and had a last-minute conflict was, she stated, an insult to the intelligence of the court. She respectfully insisted that if that specific lawyer was unavailable, the firm should send one of their other 249 partners. The judge agreed. The hearing would proceed as scheduled. The lawyer Innovate Solutions sent was a replacement. A young, arrogant man with a smug expression who had clearly only been given a cursory briefing on the case. He walked into the courtroom radiating an unearned confidence, like a man who thought he was coming to a friendly negotiation, not his own execution. The judge was a stern-looking woman in her 60s, with a reputation for being tough but fair. The hearing began. The company lawyer presented his case, that I was laid off as part of a legitimate workforce reduction, and that my claims for further compensation were invalid because, at the time of my termination, I was not in possession of a valid German work permit. He was technically correct on that point, and I felt my heart sink. The judge listened patiently. She then turned to me. Mr. Hayes, she said, her voice neutral. The court acknowledges the documentation. It is a fact that at the time your employment was terminated, you did not possess a valid German work permit. Therefore, your claim for wrongful termination under that specific statute is complicated. The company lawyer let out a small triumphant smirk. I felt a cold dread wash over me. This was it. I had lost. But then, I looked at the judge's face. There was a flicker in her eyes, a glint of something that wasn't defeat. It was the look of a chess master about to spring a trap. She turned her gaze to the young, smug attorney. "However," she said, her voice suddenly taking on a sharp, dangerous edge, "I have a clarifying question for the record, Herr Anwalt. Can you please confirm for the court that your client, Innovate Solutions, did, in fact, assign duties to and received work product from Mr. Hayes during the 6-week period between his arrival in Germany and his termination?" The young lawyer, eager to prove I was a legitimate employee for the purpose of the layoff, walked right into the snare. "Yes, of course, Your Honor," he said confidently. He was the director of European operations. He was managing the entire team, developing strategy. He was absolutely working for us. The judge's expression turned to solid ice. The trap was sprung. She leaned forward, her voice low and menacing, each word a hammer blow. "I see. So you are confirming, on the official court record, that your client knowingly and willfully violated Section 4A of the German Residence Act by employing a foreign national without a valid work permit and residency title?" The lawyer's confident expression faltered. He started to stammer, but the judge cut him off. "An offense, which I am sure a competent lawyer such as yourself recalls, carries a statutory fine of up to 500,000 euros. A fine, I should add, that is payable to the German state, not to Mr. Hayes. That is, of course, in addition to the potential criminal charges against the responsible corporate officers. Would your client," she paused, letting the words hang in the silent courtroom, "like to request a brief recess to reconsider their position on a private settlement with Mr. Hayes now?" The color drained from the young lawyer's face. He went white as a sheet, then a sickly shade of green. He looked as if he had been physically struck. He stammered a request for a recess and practically sprinted out of the courtroom, his mobile phone already pressed to his ear. We sat in the empty courtroom. Frau Schmidt looked at me and gave a single, slow, deliberate wink. 20 minutes later, he returned, his arrogance completely gone, replaced by the terrified humility of a man who had just had his career flash before his eyes. The settlement negotiations took less than 5 minutes. They agreed to everything. My full final month's salary. Full severance pay, based on my 15 years of service. Full, first-class repatriation costs for my entire family. And, on top of all of that, a massive, 6-figure sum for emotional distress and damages. A number Frau Schmidt plucked from the air that was just low enough to be cheaper than the 500,000 euros fine. They even agreed that I could keep the very expensive, brand-new company laptop they had issued me. We walked out of the courthouse, into the crisp Munich air. I had won. I hadn't just gotten my money back. I had beaten them. I had used their own arrogance and their own weapon, the German contract, to bring a multi-billion-dollar corporation to its knees. That night, Sarah and I sat in a charming Bavarian beer garden. The settlement confirmation email, glowing on my phone screen. We had the money. We had the plane tickets home. We had a choice. We could retreat back to the U.S., defeated and scarred by the experience. Or, we could do something else. They tried to ruin our lives, Sarah said, taking a sip of her beer. They tried to trap us here. What if we stayed? But on our own terms. And that's what we did. We cashed the check. We used the repatriation money not to fly home, but to secure a new apartment. We enrolled Emily in an international school where she flourished, becoming fluent in German. I used the settlement as a cushion. I did some freelance consulting work, but I was no longer chasing the corporate dragon. My time was my own. For the next 5 years, we lived the European dream they had promised us, but we did it our way. We spent a long weekend in Paris, had Easter in Rome, saw the Christmas markets in Prague. We explored castles on the Rhine and hiked in the Swiss Alps. We lived. I'm writing this now, 5 years later, sitting at a small cafe in Florence, Italy. I'm typing on that same, sleek silver laptop that Innovate Solutions so graciously let me keep. They tried to strand me, to ruin me, to teach me a lesson about corporate power. Instead, they gave me a $500,000 severance package, a free computer, and the greatest gift of all, my freedom. And for that, I suppose I should almost thank them. Almost.